All right, welcome back, ladies and gentlemen. Speaking Sporadically podcast, episode number...
I knew it. As soon as I heard him talking, I'm like, we never check. Just have a countdown, like a flip countdown.
Yeah.
And just every time we leave, we flip it.
Count up.
And then it goes up.
Yeah, that would help, low-key.
Oh, yeah,
I think it's 144, though.
There we go.
Yeah, 144.
144.
We got some big plans for this episode. You got some you have long johns on, or those long socks?
Just
Okay.
longer socks. I've been running around all day.
143.
I have not had time to
Sorry,
stop and
143.
change clothes.
No, this is 144. Wait,
Yeah.
that's what I said. Yeah, never mind.
It's the next number of the one we currently have posted.
Yeah.
So, yeah, we're back. We're back in action for you guys.
Right up off my shoe.
Guess we'll give some life updates. Luke, you want to start?
Life updates?
Yeah.
Or-
Just kind of what you got going.
I'm just working a bunch,
you came
saving a
out,
bunch of
didn't
money. Hey, yo.
No, he did that like episode.
Yeah, I was like
61.
I was 137.
Oh, yeah.
That's the last time I was on 137. You know, you forgot about it. It's been a while. It's okay.
It's been a while.
I listened to that when we were here.
Good song.
Yeah, that's about it. Just working a bunch, saving a bunch for our house, living life, having fun. That's it.
You two got some big news.
Yep, me and Devin are both graduated.
No more school.
No more school.
Welcome to the
It's a
club.
good feeling.
Yeah,
I think. Yeah, I don't think I would go back unless someone. Probably I would
Paid
have to
for
get
it.
paid. It would have to be paid for, and I would have to get paid to do it. Like I would have to make money to get it too.
Mm.
So, yeah, very excited. Learned a lot with school. A lot of good opportunities, but at the same time, happy to be done. Start the chapter of my adult life.
Yeah, it's gonna be weird. Like this next chapter.
The fall is the weirdest part. I'll
Right,
tell you
that's-
that. Like when everyone else is kind of like people like still start going back to like doing college classes. They quit working like summer jobs, and you're just like still doing the same thing. And you guys are just doing whatever, and then you start seeing like your coworkers all the time instead of like people you know, and you're like, this is going to get really boring for a little bit.
Yeah. The only thing that I've been pondering is, I kind of always know what part of the year I am by kind of like, I'm in this first semester, then second
phases
semester.
too.
Like I have a very phased out year, and it's always been like that. Like I've always gone to
It
school
blends
Yeah.
together.
for like my
it
whole life.
blends hard.
Now I'm thinking like are holidays going to be more significant to me because they're going to be more of a
Probably, 'cause
marker
you'll
of
probably
time.
get
You
off
have less
work.
time.
Yeah,
you have less
yeah.
time though. Like, I think you're not getting a big break like school. Like I always
That's
got really
true.
hyped for Christmas because I was like, I got a month off to just kind of do whatever.
Especially
This time
in college.
I worked right up to the day before Christmas Eve. At Christmas Eve, and then we get a week off around Christmas and New Year's, which is a little different than most people. But like most people would just Christmas Eve, Christmas Day, back to work on the 26th. Like a lot of places are like that.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm like, there's no more like hype. I kind of lost the Christmas hype for me because I was just like,
That sucks.
you basically, there's no real hype. I mean, I get a week off, but most people don't even get that.
That's
so.
how my
I'll
job
have
was
the
this
same-
past year.
I'll have the same phases because I operate
Forever.
the same way.
Yeah,
I'll have that
yeah.
same phase for
Forever.
every year for the rest of my vocational life.
Grow up.
Starting at like 6 years old all the way
Kid.
to.
I think about that a lot for
65.
teachers. It's like you are in school your whole life.
Yeah,
Mhm.
but they dropped the retirement age. 35 years of teaching, you can retire with like full benefits from the
Yeah.
state and federal. Federal. It's insane.
Call it
35
what you
years
want,
teaching.
but I don't think teachers are underpaid at all.
This is definitely a debate we can get into.
I mean, I'd love to
Sure.
talk about it.
Yeah,
We
I
could
mean,
if we want.
Hey, am I still in camera if I sit opposite of you? We can have a nice cordial
It'd be
discussion.
close.
I mean, we
can
usually
do
don't
it.
get political on
It'd be
here.
close.
Yeah.
Let me look.
But we can't. I don't know
I'm
if
fine.
they're.
As long as you stay
Yeah,
leaned
you're
in, you're
very
good.
side
If you
profile
lens
if you're
forward a
okay
little
with that. But
You can kind of take a
Is this
peek.
my-
at
as anyone else on my
Oh,
side,
yeah.
like, might as well just pick stances, I guess. If you don't want to, you don't have
I'd like
to.
to
Yeah,
stay in the
you
middle.
just listen.
I'd like to stay in
Yeah.
the middle.
I think
Pitch in
it's
whatever
I
you
think
feel
it's
you
at a
got.
pretty good spot where it is currently.
So
So
we have to
would
get
would
some
you
facts,
say
though.
you think it is in a good spot currently, or you think they should get more benefits than
More
what they do
benefits,
now?
more
More
pay.
benefits? Nah, I'd say. So, well, for one, so there was a protest. I can't remember where it was. It might have been Philadelphia. There was a protest last night that I was watching before the Kentucky Derby, and it was on it was about paying teachers more,
Okay.
and I didn't necessarily agree with it. Like they seemed like they wanted far too much for what it is. But let's look at the average salary of a teacher. and then I can.
Are we gonna go
I could
United
say-
States or are we gonna do Ohio?
I could say I will not like teachers, in my opinion, aside from politicians, are the most important federal employees. We can start with that.
I don't know. It's hard to compare.
I would say
because some
the-
politicians really have outstayed their welcome, and that's an interesting.
So
it's
you would
like
argue
it's
that
on the verge
teachers
of
are
different-
more important
I
than
would say
politicians?
politicians
They
are
could
the
be.
most
I mean-
important. Not that they're the greatest.
I'd say it's
they're the most.
Yeah, I would say
important
that's like
members of
that's
the
a
federal
pretty
government.
that's non-negotiable. I would
Yeah.
say.
I don't
But then
know.
below that, I would say
Next, you have what, like
teachers.
road pavers potentially.
I mean, I would put like
I mean, if
police
you-
officers, FBI, CIA,
yeah,
law enforcement.
Yeah, law enforcement.
Law enforcement, then educators. You're
Yeah.
right. I forgot law enforcement.
It's just even tough because at the same time, it's like you still need teachers because they obviously educate the
Well,
youth.
the crazy thing about
It's kind of more like a part of a chain where like if one link is bad, they're all like.
are we talking
depend.
specifically about public teaching? Because
Private's on a total
private
different
teaching
world.
has been going, like I think there's a larger amount of students taught privately as it's been increasing.
Homeschooled or privately?
Like private schools where you
Okay.
have to pay for everything. Homeschools is even a complete different realm
It
too.
goes often off a wall too.
So that's my one argument is like maybe, because private schools are gaining in popularity, and I would assume.
but is there a better quality of education coming out of a private school compared to
Yeah.
public?
I would say your
Probably,
top
but-
10% of earners annually probably, I would say a majority of them went to a private school.
Is that because they went to private school? Is that because their parents were rich enough to send them to private school, and therefore they had the structure to gain that platform?
Yeah,
of
yeah.
power?
That's always the fraternity argument because people talk about how much you gain from being in a fraternity, but if you also look at the type of people that are capable of joining fraternities, typically
It's a
always,
paradox.
yeah. What do they
In
call that? The
theory.
survivorship.
In application, yeah. But I'm not trying to break that down though, because it 100% success in life. I wouldn't put a percentage on it, but a significant amount of success stems from who you know, and
Where
how
you
you
can-
interact with.
Where you came from too,
and,
at a point.
And, yeah, and I'm not trying to break it down. So like, I'm trying to get up there and meet a bunch of people. Like when I student teach, I'm on my best behavior all the time. Like I'm the best version of myself when I go to classrooms and meet faculty and talk to district people, because then I know them, right? And then in a year when I'm ready to, when I'm ready to get a job, I'm gonna want it.
Look at these shoes. These are my top of the line freaking Kanye's.
Thank you, Jacob.
Anyways.
Appreciate it. Why did you call them Kanye's? Oh, never mind. Forgot. That's just easy. But I mean, so I'm not trying to break that whole fraternity thing down. I think it's
Mhm.
you can't just get rid of it because then those people. I mean, it's an advantage that if you have, take advantage of it.
Yeah.
But-
Did you find the average salary?
I did. So, teachers get paid the more they teach, right? So
Sure.
The longer you go, the higher they get paid. The starting salary, on an average, is $44,530. Start.
Okay.
Now it gets up to a better salary. The average teacher in the 2023 to 2024 school year in the states, they're taking the average
Out
of
of-
the average of states,
Okay.
is $72,030.
And that's including people that have like a master's though too.
It
And that's
is
still you're
including
talking.
people- if you get a master's,
you
and a
make more
doctorate,
money.
You get paid more.
Yeah, there's things like that too.
And I think it's kind of silly because if you get a master's or a doctorate and you don't need it for any of the classes you teach, you should not get paid more for that
Yeah.
whatsoever.
I always
You
think
really
it's
should.
weird that
They only get paid better because it makes districts look better.
Mhm.
Usually is what happens.
It's fair.
It's that
So
which
we're
I'm
talking straight
definitely
money
against.
though. That's just like a monetary, like your paycheck.
That is.
That's not
that
even
is a paycheck.
including like benefits.
I
State
even,
benefits.
I'm even
What would that be
stronger on this
adjusted?
side.
What would that be adjusted to? Like, do they typically adjust that for if they were working like the entire year? Because they also get months off.
No, but that's
Yeah,
included.
that's the entire
included.
year. You're paid
Okay.
salary,
Or salary.
So you get a paycheck in the summer.
Yeah.
Well, I
I
guess
think
you
it's
can. Some
smaller.
people can take it. You
Yeah.
don't pay it.
Well,
in
I'm
the
saying
summer,
you could
but-
You
even
get a bigger
like
paycheck
that
during the
72 number you could consider to be even higher because if you did it on a 9 months,
No, we're not including.
We're just gonna
supplementary income. We're including what you get paid to teach people during the school year.
but I'm saying for the sake of the argument, you also have to remember they're only working the 9 months, so you could argue that it should be lower because they do have time off.
That's included in that already.
That's
We
what
just
we're
set
talking
that.
about.
Yeah,
It's-
I'm just
that's
pointing-
calculated
It's
in.
already set. Like
If
that's
they
included.
If they work the other 3 months, it would be higher.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
So
Yeah.
it's
You
already
okay?
it's already accounted for.
Yeah. Yeah. I was pretty much just pointing out
You're
that
just
detail.
arguing that it should be even lower, or stating that it could be even lower.
Yeah, like that
because
could
of
be an
-3.
argument.
Okay. What do you think, though?
Sorry,
What do you
I
think
wasn't
it-
exactly.
What do you think it should be? Sorry.
I don't know. I'm not going to just put a dead number on it because I can't do that for any profession. I just think in general, and I don't know if I would say teachers are overpaid, but I think they are very fairly paid, and I think people who are advocating for more pay or say they're egregiously underpaid, I think is just wrong. Because like we said, they work 2/3 of the year. So I just did that math.
Mm-hmm.
If they make $72,000 a year,
Well, 3/4.
based on their
technically.
hours, and let's assume they work 8 hours, right? You get their half hour before, half hour after the kids leave.
Maybe
That's pretty
9
simple.
hours.
Or you grade some nights and like you get that. That's $52 an hour.
That's.
I mean, that's pretty good.
But
That's I would say
Yeah.
that's above the average for
it's
most
well
other
above.
people.
I mean, that's well above for
Yeah.
the most part.
So again, yeah, and like there's a lot of little vacation days.
But they also have a lot of teacher work days though too, where they still got to go in and
It's true. And they,
Yeah.
I
And
know
gotta
they
do
work,
things and-
they do work outside of hours.
and they got there's a
grading
lot
or
of money that they
planning.
have to spend on their classrooms. That's like out of
Mhm.
pocket, like money that they're going to spend.
Yeah, but in the grand scheme of things, how much is that? What is
I
that
don't
like
know.
200
I mean-
a year? Would you say?
I
I,
mean,
don't know how much
what?
it
I'm
costs
sorry.
to like decorate your classroom.
200? No.
A year?
And not to mention, it's not uncommon for requests of resources to be refused. Teachers spend about 1/3 of their salary on classroom resources.
No
I would say
way.
No way.
because
They're not spending 20K a year on
20K a
resources.
year on classroom resources.
We're going off the 72 number here for that.
I mean,
Hang on.
I just did a
Maybe.
little. I
That
just
was like
rounded down.
60.
I'm
It
saying
would be like-
conservative.
It would be like
I mean,
26.
I know they get posters
you're
to
right.
hang
That's-
around and color things, but they're not spending a car.
Yeah, if they were, where is that shit at? I know those little clicker things we
Yeah.
took tests on in elementary school weren't costing 20K. At least I hope they weren't.
I hope they didn't.
My
Yeah, no. That's
God.
ridiculous. I'm sorry.
Oh my God.
But it's
I
true
have to
that
look
they
it
do
up.
have
They
costs.
Let's
spend a
say
good
high
bit.
end, they're dropping 2,500. I would be flabbergasted.
I would be too.
We could say
I know
we could say
the
$2,000.
person who she waitresses with me on Tuesday nights at Al's. She has a whole Amazon list, like the parents who are have more money can like spend money on and whatever. And she's got like probably at least a $1,500 or $2,000 list most of the time for just like little things. I mean, like packs of crayons, just markers. But she's teaching first grade though too. So
Oh, I found my resource there. I found my resource. That's why I got the 25% from. It was just talking about in schools where a certain percentage of students are on free lunch programs, they spend a significantly higher amount on resources for the classroom.
I don't know
That's
too
where
much
it came
about
from.
that.
No, they spend. So it's not uncommon, and this number I can like correlate in my brain to things I've seen in classrooms. They spend about $1,000 every year on
That
classroom resources. Now, like,
still
like,
surprised
that
me,
is,
but I
like-
bet that's true.
Sometimes
I
you can
see
get books
that.
from the school. Like schools are not cruel
Mm-hmm.
hellspawn, right? Like the administration's not. But sometimes you just have to get your own books. You have to get a bunch of.
Yeah.
Did teachers
And
still
there's-
get tax reimbursements for that?
Yeah, you can.
I mean, we do too. If I spend money
Anyone
on work,
Yeah.
it's tax
tax
taxable.
write-off.
Yeah, but
Like if I buy a
you
car and
still-
only
you still
drive
have
it
to
to and
con-
from work or for work, I can completely write it off.
For every job, there's a consideration of you don't get that back until the end of a cycle. So it's still factoring into the cost of living
Mhm.
in a net negative. But
Yeah, because you have to, you have to value it back, So like if they would, it might prevent them from paying $200 in taxes, but they're not getting that $200 now. They're getting $200 later.
yeah,
So they're
So
really
you're
only getting
still
like
down-
150 back.
you're still down. Yeah,
You like lose 50 from
But
that.
still, it's
technically,
something to
whatever.
consider
Yeah,
it is definitely something.
because it lessens your net negative.
We could, so we could get. I'll say, I think the pay's fair.
I think it's
I
fine.
think it's fair. I think a merit-based, like they were thrown in on the federal level, they were thrown around the idea of merit-based incentives.
I think that's-
for educators. I think that is a good way to encourage teachers and pay them more,
Mhm.
assuming they deserve it and their work is shown, right?
I agree.
But let me
would
get
say-
the actual number. But compared to people that go through the same years of college, so the same like a bachelor's degree,
Mm-hmm.
and have to do a similar, the closest relation of program content like learning. So like teachers have to learn this kind of thing and this kind of thing. So they're not just like my major is the department is education and human ecology. Because I'm not just teaching them about the Battle of Waterloo. Like a teacher is responsible to like grow a student into a civic, responsible member of society, and you only have a year to do it. And every other teacher after you depends on this year, every single year for every single student, and you have to babysit. You have to address behavioral issues. You have to be an expert on a lot of, well, again, like behavioral troubles, disabilities, psychological issues. You have to be an expert. You have to communicate with everybody, all parents, and most of the time they're frustrating. Like they do not work well with teachers at all. You have to teach them. You have to build lesson plans. Half the time you have to build new lesson plans every year because the state and federal always change stuff. What else we got here? Teacher pods. I mean that's not necessarily extra work. In fact, that helps working with teachers and collaborating. But we could get into the theories. Like for 4th through 9th grade, that's obviously like that's the like every time I tell someone I want to teach middle school, I always get like like it's sad. It's not sad, but it is definitely like it's a time in a child's life where they're changing so rapidly and so much. It's hard to pin it down, but there are. I've written 10-page essays on at least 20 theories already, and I'm not even in my senior year. You have to intimately know so many things. You're basically a psychologist. And you have to have a bachelor's. You cannot get the job unless you have a bachelor's. 4-year degree. How much do you hope to be paid in like 10 years from now with your 4-year degree? Jacob. Sorry, because you have a master's. How much do you hope to get paid from your work, a salary, not anything else, with a 4-year degree?
It's different for my job field because I'm going to get paid commission based off production.
That's fine.
It's like 6 figures.
6 figures.
Yeah.
What do you do for your job? And I'm not, to completely preface, not for them, but for you. I'm not trying to break down your job in any way, shape, or form. I think it's a good job, a helpful job, important to people that need it. People need financial help. And I know you're doing... Can you explain what you're doing?
Pretty much I'm going to sell group health insurance to companies, so you establish plans for them and maintain them.
It's important. People need health insurance. You're providing it not just for a company, but for all of the employees underneath it. So it is significantly important. But do you think that you have to consider quite so many factors of you have to compartmentalize so many different variables to sell one thing to one company, as a teacher does, to prepare one student for success in 1 year of school?
Probably not.
Now imagine
But
there's 30-odd students.
But they also another thing I think is I think you're talking about how an optimal teacher should behave.
That's what
I don't know
I
if
prefaced with,
every teacher.
Well, that's what I'm saying is I don't think that they need a pay raise
in that regard.
Yeah, they don't need a pay raise. But if they do implement merit-based incentives, then I'm in full support of it.
But
obviously, because I intend.
What would the metrics be for the merit-based incentives?
They never fleshed it. Haven't fleshed it.
Yeah,
it's not table.
It would be really difficult if you do it off state testing.
Yeah,
how is that proven?
No, it can't be state testing. Standardized tests are almost out the window already. Standardized tests are actually bad because it doesn't consider the context of a student. And so you can't take 2 students from 2 different places, 2 different families, 2 different contexts, 2 different belief systems, religions, all of that, and say, well, this one scored better on math and this one scored worse on math, therefore that student's smarter. It doesn't work that way. So they're going away from it. So we can't do standardized testing. However, there can be evaluations. Their whole classroom, so the classroom unit from one region, which is eliminating a bunch of other non-essential variables. And then you have contextualized testing, which again falls to the teacher as extra work, but it'd be worth it if it's for merit-based incentives. Like, you go through a list and you basically check boxes or you write comments for submission, for review, about each student's home life. Which, as a teacher, you should know that. You have to take every piece of this child's life, every context of it, whatsoever, all of it, and apply it to help them learn. Because every single student is different. That's another hugely difficult thing. Is if someone in sales is trying to sell one thing doesn't matter how big the product is to someone, it's one-on-one. A teacher at any given point in time is working with at least 15 students, not just in a single classroom for a period, but assuming a small class in a small school is 15. Usually it's closer to 24 to 30. You have every context of every child in that classroom you have to consider to be the most effective teacher.
Can I disagree with that completely?
Yes.
Yeah, I think kind of what Jacob said. I think you're just completely envisioning the absolute perfect teacher.
Yeah.
Because if I would go back to high
Well,
school
what I'm saying is
and
the
ask
perfect-
some of my,
opinion,
if
that's
I would,
not
What I'm
how
saying
I
is
felt.
the perfect
Yeah, if
teacher
I w-
should get paid more. That's what I'm saying. I'm not
that's
saying
fair.
every
That's
teacher.
fair.
Yeah.
That's fair.
I think, yeah.
If a
so we could
teacher
look at
could
that
do-
as two different
yeah.
arguments. How much should the optimized teacher get paid, and how much should a teacher that's
You can
been
argue
teaching
that.
for
You-
25 years
But you could argue that
hasn't
for every
changed their
profession.
lessons
You could argue that for every
plans?
profession.
Mhm.
Should a mechanic get paid less of an average because he's doing a shittier job? Or should a great mechanic get paid more?
I would
Now, most
I
of
would
the
say that
time-
is true for most other professions.
Okay, so
I say crappy mechanics do get paid a lot less than really good mechanics.
Trey. Yeah.
Goodness
Trey's here.
gracious.
Hey, Trey.
There goes the neighborhood.
What does that mean?
Yeah, you're just gonna have to like rest it on top there.
we'll say it. We'll put it this way.
Yeah, it just rests on top.
Well, I
there.
can't. I can't.
Yeah, you just.
I was gonna correlate it to context that we were both familiar with, but I should.
I think in most other professions it is very
Well,
more.
okay. Can I reframe really quick
Just
though,
lean it- put
to
it on the
clarify?
Sure.
You're right. A shittier mechanic makes less than a great mechanic. A great mechanic gets a promotion. Great teachers can't get a promotion. They just get higher pay as they stay with the school. They're only rewarded for time and loyalty. They're not rewarded for their efforts compared to other teachers.
Yeah, I think that's where the system's messed up. I would like to see a good implementation of a good merit-based system because I don't like the time.
I don't
like
teachers to be paid any
tenured
less than they
systems.
But I want
Yeah.
good teachers. Well, because first of all, that could turn bad teachers into good teachers.
Yeah.
Yeah, you don't want to reduce.
I completely agree that, and that's why I think like the government needs to take off regulations. Like I believe in free markets. I believe take off any type of regulations or base pays or minimums, maximums, or set boosts. I make it merit based, and obviously as you teach more and you get more experience, your merit will go up, so you'll get paid more as you get. Just like with every other profession, you're based on merit, and then as you keep working that job, you usually get more experience, you become more valuable, you get paid more.
Yeah. I really I don't like the concept that just because you stuck around for another year, that it automatically.
I mean, no, it
increases your
doesn't
pay.
automatically, but like the correlation between that and you actually becoming more valuable because you're more knowledgeable and experienced is like extremely high, right? Like who's going to get worse
It's a
at
high
a job
probability.
working at it at a year?
Yeah.
Ooh. I mean, you could get like lazy because you know the in and outs. And
Yeah,
stuff.
you could just stay the same.
And I know teachers get like that. I know teachers.
Some
get like that.
complacency. It
Like
happens.
I
lesson
mean,
plans
how
are
many times have you?
psychology
How many
Is it
times?
they become less valuable or they cut waste? If they do the same job,
It depends. They could either get more efficient or
Create
they could-
waste.
or they could be more efficient for themselves and not for the school.
well, then I think I still think that would be reflected. I think you get fired. Like I feel like if they notice that they're coming in late or like their plans are the same and even if they're
I'm not
older,
talking
I think
from
they
it,
would
but
get.
it's just,
Just
like,
I'm just saying something. If they would start cutting
Using the
corners,
same
basically.
test that they had last year.
Right.
all
Like
that
I would
stuff.
like to think, just like for my profession,
well, if a test is a good assessment, keep it for one. Like, don't change tests every year just to change it.
Mhm.
That doesn't make any sense. If a test is efficient at evaluating students, don't change it, which is good. But oftentimes you do have to change them because every class is going to be at a different pace or a different mark by a certain time of year, so you have to change it up. That's another thing. Your job is not the same every year.
No
It
job
changes
is.
all the time. Yeah, I mean, to be fair, yeah, there's.
So I guess
certain jobs that you
some are
clock in,
more
clock
than
out, and you're
others.
like, I know the
Yeah.
routine and stuff. And yeah, for the most part, that's true. Like teachers get to school at this time, they have this, and blah blah blah, and
Mhm.
bus duty. Sure, but the cognitive side, the cognitive growth side of teaching is always different. I guess is what I'm saying. Like getting a child to.
Do you
actually
think
is incredible.
online professors should get paid anything near what they do get paid currently? Well,
what do you
I'm
mean, like for college? Like if
Yeah.
you only teach online
yeah,
classes?
if you only teach online
Compared to
classes.
that.
I think you're
person.
providing a great service to a lot of people
Mhm.
because it's cheaper. they can work a full-time job and still manage to get a degree that they
But would you say
without
that
any
all of that
further wisdom.
psychological stuff is like pretty much not really being applied in an online
They're
setting?
adults. They're adults. Past teachers from elementary and high school should have done their job to the point that they're okay.
Yeah.
And once you get to college, you're not trying to get them to be a great civic person in the community. Now, the colleges say that, and they try to encourage that with clubs and events and stuff, right?
But you're
That's
just trying to prepare
and
them
those
for
gen
the
eds,
job
right? That's
field.
what they're for, really. It's to diversify you, your skill set, your way of thinking about society and stuff. And that's how they kind of get a bad rap for being too liberal and stuff like that, right? But at the end of the day, colleges are a vocational school. They are training you to do a certain job and nothing else, right?
Mhm.
You should have had everything else already done in elementary and high school. So, I don't know what they get paid, but I think fine, probably.
Yeah, I think it
Probably
still
get
comes down to
College
merit
professors
based.
don't get paid that crazy, to be honest.
Yeah.
Unless you're with like an Ivy League or something, or if you take on other responsibilities within the college.
Yeah, I still think it should be merit based, and like there's ways to calculate, you
Yeah.
know, how much you're teaching your kids,
Well, how
and
many students do you have?
yeah, how many students they have, how well are they doing, are they graduating? You could even look at like you could even track like, you know, after graduated, like teachers you or students you taught.
That'd be the best.
Or
way
like
to
even
do
if you're
it.
a gen ed online teacher, you should get paid a little less than if you're like a specialized like
Right. Like
accounting
teaching
professor and you teach them their final
You also
accounting
have-
classes.
You also have technically they can't control how many students they have. So
Yeah,
maybe
that's true. Yeah.
Maybe you can't deduct it, but if they have a higher amount.
Yeah, but then
compared to
again,
the
you can't
average,
really
I'll
like.
give them-
I'm just gonna use you as an example. Luke can't really determine his workload, but he kind of gets paid more. As you know, I see what you're
yeah,
saying.
that's
I see what
like,
you're saying.
If they have a higher amount, get them a bump, but don't reduce it from a mean just because
yeah.
others like people didn't sign up for the class.
Right.
An online teacher makes between 10 and 75 an hour, with earning as much as
That is
up to
big ass
71,000. That's a
That is
huge
range.
range.
Yeah, holy smokes.
A lot of them look around 60-ish K.
I bet
I'm
it's probably
saying.
because like, oh, you do a class for a semester. That's like the 10, like a high school teacher that helps with like CCC college
CCP.
credit plus classes. Like, oh, I teach one for a semester, and
Yeah.
then like the rest of the year I'm off. Or else like a half semester class.
Yeah.
And then
it's
someone who does it full time,
time,
like
5 classes every semester, even summer.
yeah.
Like they're
like my
yeah.
mother's getting a master's soon, like in a few months, all online, entirely online. She got finished a bachelor's and then is getting a master's all online. Those
Oh, wow.
professors are full time.
Mm-hmm.
So I'm assuming those are up to the 70, 77.
Yeah.
Yeah. But
And I know you can be an online professor for multiple colleges. I'm pretty sure.
yeah, you can.
Some of my Edison
Yeah.
professors,
Do
like
state
they would just be pretty much showing their screen, and I could see they had like multiple tabs saved for college homepages.
The professor that I have for student teaching, who comes and evaluates my actual like in-person hands-on ability, that's like what he does for the education department. He does the same exact thing for Wright State Lake for educators.
Is there any outside evaluation? Because I know the principal would sometimes come in and monitor like classes.
Yeah.
Is there any outside evaluation that comes into schools?
So there's a slim
and-
chance. So at the college level, you have audits from the state. You have audits. Like one of my classes this year got audited. So the state came in and evaluated. Audited as in they're just evaluating the success or the efficiency of the class itself, of the coursework, course load, and the professors. So honestly, yes. So if we're looking at a scaffold of the school system, we'll just put teachers at the bottom in the general area, right? They're not at the bottom of the totem pole. They're the most important employees that they have. But you got the teachers. They work together in pods. What they're trying to do now, actually what is in the state of Ohio, the system is, technically when I get a job, I'm going to have a teacher over me, like a supervising teacher, essentially. And they're just going to work closely with me to help me get used to it. And so they can come in and evaluate my teaching. And then you go up, you have, like what you said, principals, superintendents come in, view, and watch. And then they evaluate yourself, goes to the school board and stuff like that. But then there's also district level stuff. So like 504 plans and IEPs, disability behavioral stuff for students, like a plan you build with their contexts that helps you guide your lesson planning for them specifically. So the district's in charge of stuff like that. They have district level resources from the state.
Yep. We're going.
So you have that, and I would not be surprised if they could come in and watch like evaluate your efficiency with a student on such of those, like one of those plans, to see if you are providing an effective education for them. And then you also have schools don't often let like legal teams come in, but if parents are that worried about how effectively a teacher is providing services for their child who requires special services, then you can be evaluated in that way as well. That's as far as I know on outside evaluations, but it does go higher than.
So leaning towards like a normal classroom setting, like not a kids with like special teaching needs.
Okay. So none of the. No
Say you have a
Which
teacher that's like.
I will say, that's exceedingly rare. That there's on average like 4 to 5 in every single classroom.
Oh really?
Yes, 100%.
I believe it.
Most of it's behavioral, and most of it's very easy to work around. And not behavioral as in they just behave poorly. It's kind of like the ADHD or autism
So
spectrum disorder
they'll
stuff.
get like reported, and you said they get put into like a plan.
Yeah, so they're evaluated by teachers as well as other professionals, working with parents to identify them as well. And a teacher can just notice. And then
So like Luke, guys, he's going through high school. Who do they report? Well, I'm saying back when you were, who do they report like his disabilities to?
Okay, so a teacher can notice. First thing you notice as a teacher.
Who gets that 3-page long report
Right.
of all those?
First thing you do after you notice as a teacher is you bring it to administration, and there's a school professional in the building or at the district level of your district of schools that it is their job.
Is that really common that teachers will take the effort to do that, or did
100%. It's very important to have a plan. Let other teachers know.
Well, I'm saying like I'm talking like the average Joe teacher. They are doing that.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes, they are 100% doing that. It makes their life easier. It makes the kids' life better because they actually have a plan to help them learn, and they know that too. It's open communication after you get to like 3rd grade, right? So they won't understand in 3rd grade. But you go up, they'll understand. Like, oh, they have to read a test to me because I just don't read right. Like that's it, and it's not a problem that they have themselves. Like they can't just learn it like all the others. It's an actual issue that we have to address. And then when you do, you get access to resources from the district level or from the school itself that just has it to help that student. And so it does make the teacher's life easier, and it does benefit the student quite a bit. But yeah, you report it to that particular school professional, administration. You communicate with the parents pretty much immediately, and that's where it gets tough. Like no one wants to tell their parents that their kid is like can't read. We'll teach them harder, stuff like that. But that's what happens, and then you can reach out to the district for resources. It's like technology that could help, like text-to-speech skills and stuff like
Yeah.
that for students on the autism.
So
spectrum
say
disorder.
we'll go back, say like at the high school level, we're in the very rare situation where there is no kids that have been reported, like to the district, and then you have a teacher that's been teaching for like 20 years, and they kind of got into like a pretty big groove where it's just rinse and repeat. They're good friends with the principals, so when they come in and do their like internal evaluations, they pass, whatever, they're tenured. Is there any external evaluations that are done like to that classroom to make sure the teachers
only at the continue
to
Like
make
the teacher's
sure
doing his job.
yeah, doing their job good and actually being effective?
It's unlikely. I mean, if
And that, I'm saying teachers that's getting paid like $100K a year, and they're
Yeah.
kind of just sitting there, worst case scenario, they're sitting there milking it.
Yeah.
Is there anything that can be done?
Yeah.
to prevent that
I know
from
I was
happening?
talking about how standardized testing are kind of moving out the window. At least in the academic.
But really, if it's like junior seniors, there's no real standardized testing.
Right.
ACTs,
Yeah, it's tough.
potentially.
Well, there's history of testing that a lot of schools choose to do to check
Mhm.
that very thing. So you cross-reference with past scores, and if like standardized
But
testing,
could you,
doesn't
if a
work that
teacher was
effectively.
really going, they could just be passing all their students. They
Well,
shouldn't be.
That's where evaluations come in from the administration. And
Is that an
and the
internal
word of
administration,
student
or is
important
that
as well.
an
Like,
external, like administration?
oh, that'd be internal. That'd be administration for your school. That'd be your boss.
So what if they're all like
superintendents,
buddy and
principals.
it's just kind of like just going under the radar?
Oh well, ideally that would never happen. Obviously, right? The job of all of those professionals are to help every single student be successful in life. And the vast majority of school professionals I've met so far in college follow that mantra very, very well. However, you're right. Once you get to junior and senior, now I'm not too familiar with it because I've never been in a classroom like that. You know, I'm 4 through 9, so
grades.
and that's all standardized. However, once you get there, students talk. Like, they're people too, especially when they get that old, 17, 18, 16. They talk, and administration can talk with them about what's going on in the classroom. And in fact, a higher percentage of students than you probably think will complain about a class that's too easy and they're not learning anything in it. Because students want to learn things. It's just that sometimes it's hard, they get frustrated, or they just don't want to learn that particular thing because it doesn't interest them at that time. Like, the method is not interesting. You can make anything interesting to any student if you know how to do it, which is, again, one of the harder parts of teaching. Is not every teacher, but it is 100% possible to intrigue every kind of student with any kind of topic. You just have to know how to do it, which is why you have to know the context of every student, what they like, what their home life is, parents, cultural beliefs, background, history, everything. What their favorite game is. I mean, that stuff is all significantly important.
You know a lot about this teaching stuff. You should like go into it or something.
I thought about it. I think I'd be a stripper instead.
Probably make more money.
I probably would. But yeah, no, there are definitely, like, you'll get caught out. You'll get caught on that. It's so rare. A college professor, maybe let it slide, but at the high school level, it's so important, and you're a federal employee, something will slip. I'm just not too familiar with it. Because you're right, I'm only familiar with the standardized testing version of evaluating a teacher's success, even though it's kind of going to the wayside. But you have history of testing most of the time that people can do.
Yeah. So do they have a good plan now they're replacing standardized testing? Because you say it's actively going to the wayside.
Yeah, it's kind of what I was talking about. So it's context-based testing. So, and it's a lot harder. In fact, it's a lot more work for teachers, administration, whoever's developing the tests. You're taking every student's context, current ability status into consideration when you're constructing a test. And you're just doing a preliminary at the beginning. That is standardized. Everyone has the same one. And then you do it at the end based on what you know. You take a bunch of artifacts, student work, and you include, you take all of it in consideration, the grades they got on it, and then you build a test on that. And then you do provide challenging questions to them. And that's why teaching them how to get an answer, not even in math and science, but how to get an answer instead of just remembering the answer is so important. It's because those are the most important questions we have in life, is not what something is, but how to figure it out. That's the most important thing in adult life, one of them, I'd say.
No, I agree.
And so that's a very significant thing that they want to try to move towards with context-based testing. Instead of, all right, we're at the end of the year, you should know all of this by now, just straight from memory, even if it's just math and science, like, well, what formula is this? How do you calculate this and this? It's not that. It's like, it's more of like intuitive understanding is what people want to start to judge. Only difficulty with that. So that's your answer to the question. Is you include home life, context, blah, 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 all this and that. Income of parents is important. Location of living condition, or location of living context is important because, well, if we take a national average of our different locations, like inner city schools, perform lower than rural schools on average. Some rural schools perform just the same rate as ours, but that's all. Like, that tells us that these contexts are important, but for the longest time, they got the same standardized test, same exact questions and everything, same time to take it. And even something as simple as giving someone more time helps them boost their grade by 5 to 10%. So that's what they're going to try to switch away from. However, it's very well understood that it's difficult to do, and it's very time consuming. And it might not work, because if you're successful on those, that means great, you took a student and you taught them a lot of stuff, not just content, but skill sets. However, when they move on to next year, into, say that was for 6th grade, they go into 7th grade, they are expected to know certain things before the school year starts. You have to scaffold knowledge with previous understanding. understanding. And it's hard to do if you're only judging them based on what they learned themselves, not what they were supposed to learn throughout the whole school year. So that's why it's not implemented yet.
Yeah.
But it's, in theory, it's the best way to do it.
Yeah, I'm very intrigued by that because I don't know.
It's like a perfect scenario type thing.
But it doesn't even sound perfect though, because it basically just sounds like you're modifying each test to adapt to what the kid knows. Which by then, every kid should get the exact same score, implying that every
what
kid
would the goal be
is of the
for
same.
every kid to
That's
score
why
well?
Teaching them how to think or teaching them how to find an answer is so important.
That's why you're changing the structure of the
these
test.
tests aren't just A B C D question or question A B C D.
I got that. Yeah.
It's shorter tests, but lengthier questions, open-ended almost.
They're like your actual driving test where you're driving the car
You
rather
wanna-
than the paper test you
Yeah.
take over
I
driving.
agree, but
gauge-
it's almost like, okay, this person comes from a not very good background, or you know their context. He's probably not going to do as good on this driving test.
So, you just
So we'll
lower the
look past a few
expectations for 'em.
mistakes. You know, it's kind of
Yeah,
like
sure.
changing standards for, and I don't know if
Sure.
I like that because, you know, then we're not getting right. We're moving the goalpost, and we're not getting a true read. But I do see what you're saying. Where what you were saying, I think learning how to get to the answer is so huge, and
It's
I
much more important than actually just memory.
yes, I feel because I can speak to that directly during my time in college. I felt like I didn't learn that much, but I feel like I can understand stuff better now. I
Yeah,
feel like I can
yeah.
go out
100%.
and learn any topic now, you know. And like I feel like I even after like every class is over, I feel like I didn't really learn. Like can't think of that many facts from it, but I would go into like the next, I'll say course, you know, the next level course, and I feel like I would do pretty well in it just because I would able to context clues and
Yeah.
figure stuff out.
So some
So-
stuff you like memorize, like not even on purpose, but it's like
Yeah.
it's locked in there. It's like, oh yeah, this is just
Yeah.
what I'm building on this. And yeah.
So I do see what you're
Same
saying. I do think that context is important, but at the same
Right.
time, it's kind of weird because it's like we're adjusting
Luke's-
it, and I don't
Luke
think
was
we'll get a
right.
true read.
It is moving a goalpost.
Essentially, just moving the goalpost to kind of fit
Yeah.
what they should know at the current time,
Yeah.
and then
I mean, okay, maybe I'm not understanding this. If you obviously adjust a kid and test him on his strengths, like let's say Jacob's strengths is A, B, and C topics, and you test him mainly on that, and he gets a 90, while some other kids is D, E, and F, and you test him and then they get the
these
same
tests
thing.
will not
I
affect
get
the
that.
grades. It's like standardized
Right,
tests.
I know.
It's
I'm
just
just talking about
getting data
scores.
for them.
Alright.
Yeah, I'm just saying like
Okay.
A as in a topic. Like his is math, science, and history, while mine is finance, accounting. I don't know.
I mean, in a perfect world, like the best way to rate a teacher would be to rate how successful their students are after they graduate in like
Yeah.
a million topics like
Although,
happiness,
I don't know,
income,
'cause
family structure.
If I'm teaching 7th grade and they have a god tier teacher senior year, I'm
That's
only
true.
benefiting from that. Even if I was a bad teacher.
Yeah,
like,
yeah.
what if you teach a serial killer and they go out and kill 40 people?
Yeah,
Like,
bro.
is that
It's
coming
like,
back on
it's like,
you?
yo, why is my paycheck so low this month? Oh,
Chester went on a spree.
Yeah,
No,
Chester.
whoa.
Not again, dude.
I'm blanking on like
Chester
every-
embezzled a few thousand.
Yeah.
Not again, dude.
Chester.
Yeah, I think something that just popped in my head
Yeah.
because the reason we teach kids, right, is for real world applications. We really
Yes.
necessarily don't exactly care what they score on that test.
No.
If they go out in the
We
real life,
just
they
want them to learn how to learn.
Yeah, so I think instead, if we at the end of the year give them like 4 real world intense problems, and we can even put them in groups because today's society is going more
I'm
and more
actually a
groups,
huge fan.
diversity.
Yeah, yeah.
Like,
Real
group
life
testing.
application
Group
is among the
testing should
biggest-
definitely.
is among the biggest priorities that they teach in my program, and what are they called? Professional learning communities, PLCs. What they teach when they like go around to schools for teacher like professional work days. That is one of the biggest things
Yeah,
ever.
like
group-
real life
group
learning.
stuff.
A contextualizes all of their content that they've learned so far, which facilitates their learning and it solidifies their memorization skills. And it's just more interesting. And you can pick something close to home. Out in St. Mary's, when they do like bio type stuff in like 4th grade, talk about the lake, the issues they used to have with the lake, or talk about like why levees are built when you're discussing water cycles and stuff like that. It's the key.
Yeah,
I was there when they taught it. The students were so into it. They even
Yeah.
developed solutions based on problems with the levees, how they're washing like farmers' crops away. Well, what can we do different? Why do we know we can do this? Why do we know it will work based on what we know about life cycles? the students get into.
Mhm.
Every single one.
Yeah, and
you're dead on.
Some topics would be harder to create these projects or problems like others. Like history, how would you test on that? And what
it's the whole thing. Like history repeats itself. Like, how do we apply this?
Yeah, you
Or
could
what
do
is-
that.
What does this remind us of? What does this current situation or news thing remind us
Yeah,
of?
I was even
recently?
thinking like situational. Like you are a farmer in
Of course.
1872, and you're having this problem where you need to do this. Think of all of the.
Yeah.
Because is there a war in 1872 going on?
A war in
No, there shouldn't be.
1872.
There shouldn't
when
be.
was the Mexican War?
Oh, the Palomino standoff. That had to be right.
How about
around then.
we'll just do 1934. Like you don't tell them
Sure.
that the Great Depression's going on. You
Right.
just say you're in this blah blah blah
Oh, that's
situation,
great, yeah.
and in
Middle of
1930
the Dust Bowl.
you need to
Great
do this.
Depression.
You need to do this. This.
There's
Try to get this.
hyperinflation, and this really energetic
Yeah.
man is screaming at you to join this up and coming militia
Yeah,
in Eastern Europe.
yeah. And then
Western
you
Europe.
basically the kids and they, again you can be in groups. They have to come up with the best answer and. You graded off how many things they considered. Like
Right.
this group remembered that they're in the Great Depression, so they remembered that they should do this and applied it to this.
Yeah.
That would I think be a really good
What a-
way to test
in
and
a-
also
in a similar-
adjust people.
Yeah, 100%.
People's skills.
It's fantastic. In a similar fashion, one question that I haven't seen it in the school, but I would just love to implement is towards the end of the year, do a little project, put each student in a different time zone or location around the world and time in history, and then just ask them to write like, depending on the age range, like if they're 9th grade, my max, 2 pages, but write a half page to 2 pages on what one piece of technology that you understand, like you could build when you go back there, would you invent based on your context and your time and your location? How do you think it would affect people? Why would you choose that, obviously? How would it affect the world? How do you think the world would be different if it was invented at that time instead of later on?
Yeah.
That's like the capstone question to almost any history class in high school and elementary
That's
school.
fair. That's fair.
Is what could have been done different in that scenario to benefit the lives of the people that lived in, and how would it affect them in negative and positive ways? I mean, that's just because if you can do that with one item in a random time, you can apply that same concept to any item for any time, including now,
Mm-hmm.
and policies too. Like you can apply that to policies.
Yeah.
That's the biggest. That's like the biggest conceptualization
Mhm.
for history classes.
Yeah.
That's why I love them so much.
I still think we do need to have like just standard tests, but like not like a
You're not
or
wrong.
not as
I don't
standard.
think-
like little tests and quizzes. I think you still need to judge kids' knowledge and see what they're getting.
Oh,
and-
tests and quizzes for sure.
Yeah.
You can't get rid of those. You
Right.
need to be able to assess them throughout the year.
Yeah.
And you're right. That's like a perfect world scenario if it could work,
Mhm.
and if moving the goal. And the only reason they're considering it is because, like, the standardized tests are used to make policies in education that affect every student. However, without considering the context, you don't understand why certain kids are failing the tests. That's why you have to contextualize it.
Yeah, it's
And
one way to get
sometimes
more
you don't
data.
and especially for standardized tests, the schools will not have a single fingerprint on those tests when they're creating them. Like the state and federal level will do that. The state level will do that. But the contexts are important. Even if we use the same standardized test, but apply the context of every student to that test, then that might be the perfect combo to actually identify the issue behind like a content gap between different students, demographics, locations, everything. That would be the best solution. Instead of all three.
And would that also
make
open
of
up,
the
like,
test.
could one of the demographic gaps be, like, poor teaching? And then you could call out weak teachers.
That doesn't exist. However, I'll take it back. It does exist because if a teacher continuously performs, if a teacher's students year after year continuously perform poorly on standardized tests, I hate to say the word punishment, but a change is made. Like whether they're fired or if they have to or they join a new teaching pod, because interdisciplinary teaching is significantly important in schools now. Like they're always combining units, like math and science units are combined.
Mhm.
So, like,
And then, like
a
science
pod would
and
be, like,
history especially are always combined now.
multiple math teachers in the area work together pretty
It's
much.
not multiple math teachers. It's a math teacher, a science teacher, a social studies teacher, an ELA teacher. They work together. Interdisciplinary teaching is applying what you know or what you just learned about one class, one area of content knowledge, to another one to solidify your learning, or to get creative with your learning, again, looping back around to how to find the answer to a question instead of just remembering it. That's interdisciplinary teaching is like my magnum opus. I could write a book about it. It's so significantly important. Everybody does it. We do it all the time. We like talking about how, well, not about how, like one area helps us in another area, but we all do it in our professions. Mine's a bad example because it's literally interdisciplinary teaching. But like lifelong learning is like the same thing. Like that's a mantra a lot of people have, a dedication to lifelong learning. Applying something that you learned here to improve your performance in your job or something, right? Everybody does it. Think about international organizations like not even NATO. Like what's like the Red Cross. The Red Cross is international, and they have subgroups or subcommittees on different things, like I don't know, famine, and there's one on agriculture. Those two are working together. They're not the same exact profession or specialty,
Same church, different pew.
but they work together. And I'm telling you right now, every profession is in the same church, different pew.
Exactly.
You could always learn something from a different profession. Doesn't
Again,
matter
the
what
church
it
is the
And you
business.
could-
And the
and you
pew
could-
is what you do.
And you could always apply it to what you know. Now, if it's not that significantly, if it doesn't significantly change anything for you in like a better way, then it's not that great. But it still can apply. It's just typically you already know, or it's already being applied. You know, that's the only downside of the 21st century is that a lot of this interdisciplinary learning is kind of like done for us. It's been done in the past. That's why inventions like I can't think of a particular invention.
Like paddling a kid.
But a lot of inventions are literally just taking this thing and putting them together and like bam,
Would you bring back paddling?
paddling.
It's very controversial.
Corporal punishment? No. Corporal punishment, right? I don't know. Corporal punishment. Corporal punishment?
I thought it was capital punishment, but I don't
No,
know.
corporal punishment is hitting a child, like hitting a student, based on behavioral issues. No, that's
I thought
100% been
Oh,
wrong.
I
No,
thought
never
that-
done it.
I thought that's just a good lick, and that's all that is.
No, that's
They
been,
probably
that's
deserve
been
it.
long replaced by things like IEPs based on behavioral issues, like getting to the root of the problem instead of punishing a kid for the problem. If you can cut out the
That's probably
cancer,
the
so to
best way
speak,
go about it.
the student heals. So if you get to the root of the issue, you solve everything.
So you really don't believe in punishment, like at all, or
No, that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying I don't believe in hitting a child.
okay?
However,
Right away.
Yeah,
Good call. Good call.
Well, maybe not right.
Try to
away.
figure this out and they still an asshole.
Or
like,
you do it right away, so they know what they
to expect.
Yeah, they know
Instill
what they need to
fear in them.
avoid.
That's what happened to me.
Maybe
That's
the
what happened
first
to me.
Time, the first time you punish them, then if they do it again, you realize, oh, this one
one's
needs some
got
additional
balls.
help.
learn.
You got
He doesn't
balls,
learn.
kid.
Okay, let
No.
me walk you through
Um,
this.
No. What's a better word for punishment that they use? It's starts with a C.
Getting your ass beat.
Repercussions, consequences.
Consequences. So you can have positive and negative consequences, which is
Consequences.
why they use that word. But no, consequences are important. That's a big part of teaching them civility.
Yeah,
is there
yeah,
are
yeah.
consequences for things they do,
Yeah.
and it doesn't always just affect someone else. It affects them. So yes, no. If say they're behaving bad, and you tell them to stop, and they're still behaving bad, you need to either form a plan, like long term, like over like a week or so. Like you notice a continuation. You need to get to the bottom of it. You don't just they need to have consequences for what they're doing, because other students need to see an example, right? Like, okay, maybe I won't take my pants off and go piss in the closet. Like that, I won't do that. But
Or on someone's
to
desk.
stop him from pissing in the closet in the future and into his adult life, so to speak, you need to find the issue and solve it. So, proportional consequences in junction with solving the root problem is, as of right now, in current time, the most effective way of
Or do
fixing the
teachers,
issue, like fixing the behavioral problem, and continuously helping the student in their civility and social skills.
do teachers, are you guys taught in any way to
Behavioral skills.
try to divide out your time, like equally between each student? Or
No, it's equity based, not equality based.
Do you
Some
think that's positive?
Yes.
Like, do you think
Yeah.
you should devote more time to a student that you need to put more time into
Yeah.
finding those root problems,
Yeah.
rather than being able to helping a student excel even higher?
Well, that's what equity means. Is equity in education specifically, I should say, because I'm sure the textbook definition of equity is those who have the most don't get anything. However, equity in education means a student who's excelling will plateau very quickly unless they're engaged. So they need something interesting. You can't just give them the same test, the same assignments, and blah, blah, blah. That's not being equal because they're not engaged even when students that are at a lower level are. So that's not equitable. They're not engaged. That's not fair. Therefore, to be equitable in schools as a teacher, you do have to provide resources for that student. You do have to spend time developing activities. Like online scavenger hunts are really effective because those take a long time and they don't take that much time to make for those students. And then obviously students who are underperforming or on those 504s or IEP plans, they do need a lot more time to get them. And the whole point is to not get them on the same level, but to engage them to the point. First of all, the goal is always, they got to perform well on the standardized test, right? Reflect good, right? Get them the content knowledge, but it always loops back to the thinking how to find a solution to a problem. Students that perform lower in things like memorization, reading, etc., critical thinking skills, comprehension of text, they need more help to get to that point of, I think I can just do this on my own. And likewise, so there's that. So you need to spend more time with them. And then likewise, as a student is excelling, they're also not engaged. Did I hit record? Am I good?
No, yeah, you're good. I just forgot to set the timer, but I'm using my phone to see what the time is at.
That's very clever.
27 minutes.
Man, where'd you learn that at?
I learned how to learn it from Isaiah.
That's crazy. But
Okay.
yeah.
How much money do your parents make?
So, yeah, it's not equality, it's equity. Now, that being said, it just naturally happens that as you see a student struggle or see someone not being engaged, or if they're behaving poorly, you have to spend more time with those students.
Yeah.
Like real one-on-one time.
You
However,
think-
when I say spend more time on, not with, I mean like in a free period, but most of the time like at your own house.
And that's also
developing
where you could
things
recruit other teachers, like gifted
for help.
programs and
so
special
you can
needs
split
programs.
that up, and that might factor into your initial question of should they be paid more. And I'm still standing by no. I think they're paid a fair amount, assuming they're doing their job to what I've described so far, right? But yeah, you can look on it, and that's why they have teacher pods. Listen, every school I've been to has teacher pods, where they meet at least once a day or once every 2 days, and they're with they have the same students, that go between them, different disciplines, math, science, blah, blah, blah. Yeah, you can share a workload with them. But yeah, when I say spend more time on instead of with, I just mean a vast majority of your time isn't with students, it's on. Massive. Oh no.
Clip that.
Working on
It's working on their
plan.
their
Gotcha.
development.
Gotcha.
And then usually you're able to split your time pretty evenly between students. However, even I've fallen in my field placements, fallen victim to. This one is so well behaved. Like I just say good job, or you can talk with them like after class,
Yeah.
which is a very positive. It's a very efficient or effective, positive relationship building experience. It's just talking to them about their interests, saying hello in the morning. Like that is spending time with a student, but working on a student is different. You have to. Every student should not have the exact same time working on their development.
Gotcha.
But the most important thing is it's equity, not equality. They're not getting to the same level. We're doing what we need to do, or giving them the same amount of time. We're doing what we need to do to engage them and get them to that point of how to find the answer, no matter what it is. And also not being intimidated by content.
That's basically going to wrap up our entire episode. Thank you, Isaiah, for enlightening
Learning
us
us.
and talking basically the whole time.
I hope I didn't talk too fast. I feel like I did. I stumbled.
They can always
I
play
think,
on half
most
speed.
of it
Yeah.
makes sense. I think
I got it.
the big thing for me is
Oh, I know. I'm not worried you guys didn't get it. You
Yeah.
guys are smart as hell.
I'm just a big believer of just having ways to actually make sure the teachers are performing how they should be.
And I'll agree with you.
Because I think it
There-
is very common that
They-
they slip under the radar and
particular-
don't do their best.
That particular area of worry could use a lot. Yeah, at all levels of
Yeah. So
school.
I think as long as they, that is getting the proper attention, I'm pretty satisfied with how they're getting
Maybe that's
paid.
something I might take as a platform in the future. I know there's a few things that I actually like. If I'm still passionate about it in like 10 years, I'm going to seek some sort of platform to build my own platform
Yeah.
and deliver that. I was telling
Like
you
Jordan
about this.
Peterson method, kind of.
Pretty much. I more so like I was telling you about this interactive comic-based story unit, like you can do online with your students.
Yeah,
that
yeah.
It's all like you can use AI, and then the teacher just looks through it and flips through, and then it engages everybody. It tells a unique story based on what like fantasy or maybe they want to be a superhero, and you go through a whole unit, which is multiple lessons. Through comics, and you solve questions, and based on the question, like did you get it right, did you get it wrong, if not, where'd you go wrong, and each thing is a panel, and it tells a little bit of a story as you go through. That is like the most evidence-based, theory-checked way of engaging every student and delivering it to them, and it's made possible through AI.
Yeah, I think the most important thing is, teaching is constantly evolving and changing, just like every other industry.
Yeah,
Which
100%.
should lead to us getting more bang for our dollar. And then
Yeah,
teaching
in
is
theory.
also an industry that is more exposed to criticism because it is funded with taxpayer money.
Yeah.
As any program that's funded with taxpayer money should
That
be
I
under
agree
this
100%.
criticism.
Yes,
So-
it should be scrutinized with.
We'll finish off with after all this knowledge intake. Devin, do you think your stance has changed? Or do you want to make a final comment?
No, I'm happy with what I said. I think they are,
I think it's valid.
I'd say fairly paid. If not, I would say that the average are overpaid just based on the sheer hours that they work. Again, because you got to think the job market is not, you're not paid on what value you bring or how important you are. You're paid on how replaceable you are, right? Because then construction workers and roof layers would be being paid millions each year because they,
Right.
they're
Pretty much
irreplaceable. Everyone
irreplaceable.
lives in a house,
And no one
like
wants
that's
to
the
do
number
it.
one priority.
And no one wants to do
Whoa. Everyone needs to be taught. Everyone needs to be taught. Everyone's gone through school.
I mean, yeah, that's fair, but everyone needs
Let's
a
just
house
Let's
too.
apply that. Let's apply that. I know you.
I
I know
agree.
You take a road to get to school.
Yeah, well, his context
Yeah,
is that's
I'm
why
agreeing.
he's saying everyone needs a house, but
They're not paid.
not every person is
Oh,
paid
I know.
like that.
I didn't hear the but.
So the
You know?
same thing can be
Yeah,
applied to
okay.
teaching.
It's
Yeah,
based
yeah.
on how replaceable you
Yeah.
are.
I
You
see.
know, and a
Yes.
lot of people want to teach because it's a very pleasurable job. It's very noble. You know, a lot of teachers find that their time during teaching is good, and same with roofing. It's
Like I said, you get
not
those
the
grades
most
and stuff.
elaborate thing. A lot of people can roof or do construction.
I'd say
so they're very
most jobs are
replaceable.
like that, but not all of them are as
But they're
replaceable.
Yeah, yeah.
they're an
Because you have
ends
like
for means.
content creators, and then
Yeah.
a bunch of niche jobs.
What do you mean? Those aren't. I think those aren't like people who make content who are at up the top 1% or whatever. I don't think they're replaceable. I think it's pretty hard to get to that point and
How much does
be
a
that
construction
type.
worker get paid?
Depends on who
Yeah,
you're
it's-
talking to.
in the
And how-
20s or 30s an hour. I bet there's some that make in the 40s.
I mean,
it
Jared,
depends.
Jared makes more than I do.
I guess.
Okay. We
Next
don't need to
episode,
be.
we
I
can
don't.
talk
I
about-
don't
need to be
have it.
putting people's salaries
we've
out
never
there.
Said it. We've never said any numbers.
I'm just
but
saying.
I know. I'll tell you. I know he makes
Okay.
more than I do.
But we'll just say the average. You can look up
Yeah.
the average, and the average is not above six figures.
Right.
While an accountant probably right around
Close.
six
It's
figures.
close.
I would say.
think it's 90s.
Yeah, I don't know, but and again, it's just because they're not replaceable.
Right.
You know, it's kind of tough. A lot of
Accounting
people don't want to do
blows.
it. A lot of people could do accounting, but it blows.
It blows.
Yeah,
Like I know if I went into accounting, I'd probably be getting paid more. I don't exactly know, but I don't want to do it.
I'd have to
It's-
get paid a lot.
You
to
know,
do accounting.
people don't like to do those jobs, so they get paid a lot. That's why
Yeah,
like
yeah.
garbage, like that whole thing with like garbage men, they get paid quite a bit.
Oh, yeah.
They say because no, I don't want to do that.
Yeah.
So
Yeah, hard to
There's a guy who works in our shop who used to do garbage. He gave up doing garbage to come work in our shop and make less money. He said he hated it.
yeah,
He said it was awful, dude.
because it
I mean,
sucks.
yeah.
Yeah. So
Yeah.
Again,
Next
I
time we
agree.
could talk about like discrepancy between a degree you earn and the money you make.
yeah,
'Cause
that's
you're
the
right,
whole
like,
thing.
I'd say construction workers doesn't really take a degree necessarily. However, does that mean they should be paid less?
Yeah. I'm-
Like I would say, like teachers, no matter what, the factor of the salary of educators is determined based on the degree they have. even though
Yeah.
you can't even get a job unless you have a bachelor's, that the fact that you have one is still factored in.
Mhm.
And then masters and doctorates and stuff, you get bump pay.
Yeah. Depending on
I think it's silly.
depending on how
Construction
significant
workers
that
should be
bump
paid.
pay is, I would definitely I think they
it
could go
depends on
away with that.
factors. Yeah. But I'm done. I'll hop off the
Yeah.
pulpit.
I'll get off your soap opera for the night.
Well, guys,
Take a
don't
drink of water.
Yeah,
be
take a swig.
replaceable and make a lot of money.
Yeah.
Try not to be replaceable.
Yeah, be valuable, be irreplaceable. That's how you make a lot of money. Like that's why Steve Jobs and Jeff Bezos, like no one could do what
Yeah.
they do. Like it'd be hard to start an Amazon, you know.
Or own a lot of land.
Yeah. So all right.
All right.
Thank you guys so much for watching.
Be born rich.
Yeah, that helps. too.
Marry
Mary
rich.
Best
rich.
advice I could
Marry
give-
riches might be better.
No, best advice I could give you is be born rich.
Yeah,
Yeah,
be born
that'd
rich.
be better.
All right, have a good evening.
See you guys.